4, 5.
One, two, three. Check, check, check.
Hello.
Hello, everybody out there.
Happy Sunday. Hope you're enjoying a blissful day. We are here to teach class. And a little background. This is a class that we've been holding every week in May and will continue throughout the Sundays in May. It's an hour-long practice that is able to be heavily modified for any situation or space that you're in, to situate yourself in an embodied practice for the next hour. We'll offer a lot of kind of directives. We've been doing a little bit more like guided motion or specific tasks, and then also opening it up and then just having time to really just like move without words. And if you're able, please, our Venmo is at slowdanger. You can also donate paypal.me/slowdanger or through the text deductible link in my bio.
We will be, we're streaming on Instagram Live as well as YouTube, so you can watch on either platform. We will be archiving the classes and leaving them up, so you can visit them retroactively. I believe this is our 8th class, and we're excited to be here, and we're going to get started.
We wish we could see you, but we will be trying to feel you through this shared practice. So let's just get started. Finding or dropping into whatever space that you're already in. Finding your feet for a moment. We're going to do a little bit of guided meditation from Taylor.
So as Anna said, just finding a nice settling place on your feet, having them beneath your sits bones. You can close your eyes if you'd like, and just take a few breaths just to arrive. You don't have to make the breaths deep. You can do so if you wish, but just acknowledging your breath for a few breaths, settling further into those feet and into our skeleton. I like to have a soft bend in my knees at times, and just trying to clear our mind of any excess thoughts or distractive thoughts, and just trying to introduce ourselves to our body, to our skeleton, to our muscular system. Taking a couple more breaths, just continuing to settle, letting go of any excess tension in the jaw or the shoulder blades or the lower back. Following that inhale in, feeling the lungs up completely, following it to the very top. And as you exhale, following that breath to the bottom, feeling the lungs inflate and deflate inside your chest. Another nice inhale, tasting the air, the temperature of the air on your skin, feeling your garments on your skin. And as you exhale out, letting go even further of all those things that might be distractive. And incorporating now just some subtle calibration, some subtle movements. Let's imagine that there's a soft oscillation in our skull now. That might register as turning the head side to side, or a small nod of yes, or a small nod of no. It might be scanning corners of the room. It might be looking down at your feet. You can let your eyes be closed or be open, or just let them do what they need to do. But let's find just a soft, gyroscopic, liquid type of emotion in the head that might incorporate some gentle use of the neck. You can stretch your face if you want by making a sour face or a big roar face or a big smile to stretch the skin of the face. And let's just move that head a bit more. I like to imagine that I'm inside of a hollow sphere, and I can arc my head around different parts of that sphere. Or like a can of beans or food that I'm trying to scoop everything out of that can, everything from the inside. And again, soft and gentle, like Anna said earlier, arriving on our feet. So taking this use of the head as another way to feel the weight of our parts, just a little bit longer with the head. Going to whatever range feels comfortable and feels nice. Keeping our breath moving. Almost like we're singing a sweet song with our head movement. A sweet, gentle tone. A few more oscillations in the head there. And let's allow our head to settle back in its alignment, settling back on the spine. And let's take all that beautiful imagery, all that gyroscopic movement that we were working with, and let's put it in our rib cage, our heart, and our chest. And the movement of the chest might render in many different ways. Even breathing and letting the chest inflate and deflate is enough. But we can also imagine the inside of that sphere or that can. I'm reminded of some beautiful imagery Anna was using last week of the spine. Maybe that spine is like a quiet serpent or like an underwater plant that's swaying and moving. Like we're singing a sweet song, a sweet tone with the chest movement. And what's happening with us and what I see in Anna is we're also letting that head and neck just be echoed to that movement of the chest. Echo meaning it comes after. It's following that chest initiation. It's following that chest movement impulse. A little bit longer. Try feeling it laterally. Feeling movement to the side. Feeling the back of our backs, the flesh on our back. Maybe contracting into the spine a bit. Just a bit longer in the chest, scooping out all the beans from that can. Dipping low in that sphere. And let's allow that chest to quiet over the next 4, 3, 2, 1. Finding that alignment again. Settling into our weight, and now visiting the third bowl of the body, the pelvis. And beginning to translate that pelvic movement through space. I like to use the bony landmarks of my trochanters and my iliac crests to feel a sense of topography of my pelvis and how I can translate those points through space. Maybe you're imagining that you have a big long tail or a long train on your gown or a very long dress. Let's just allow that pelvis to continue to move. And again, like we saw with Anna earlier, she's allowing now her torso and her chest and her head and neck and even her arms and legs to be echoes. So we're letting the pelvis kind of drive the music that we're singing with this dance, but everything else can kind of echo. Let's just go a bit longer with the pelvis. It might be really small, like a subtle shift side to side, or it might look a little more curvy and large. It's not about what it looks like. We're just trying to find good sensation, nice sensations with that pelvis. And instead of quieting that pelvis, let's go a bit longer and let's really bring in now the other two bowls, the chest and the head and neck. Feeling now, if you'd like, a sense of totality with our body and the movement. Again, feeling back space. Anna and I are trying to build ways of sensing the entire sphere and atmosphere around us, feeling the flesh of our back, the flesh of our sides, and the flesh underneath, like the flesh of the armpits or under the chin. Let's go a bit longer with this full body. I'm reminded again of that serpent spine or that underwater plant or that stalk of corn or wheat in the wind. Just a little bit longer, and if you can even add just a little bit more speed or jostle to it, whatever feels nice. If your feet are being picked up and put back down, that's okay too. Nice and easy, just a bit longer, allowing the shoulders and joints of the arms to have a bit of play. And let's start to quiet that dance over the next 5, 4, like we're turning the volume down, 3, arriving to our alignment, 2, when we get to 0, 1, and 0. Taking a nice breath in, and let's drop our chin and just invite a nice roll down here. Whatever that means to you. It might mean bending the knees, it might mean keeping them straight, but just rolling through the pearls of the spine, peeling the wallpaper off the wall. And let's return the journey back up, bending. I like to bend the knees and leave my head heavy, letting the head be the last to arrive. If you'd like, you can send the head up just to scan the sky or the ceiling a bit. And let's take one more nice roll down, rather. Peeling the spine off that wall. It doesn't matter how fast it is. You might be going slower than us. You might be going quicker than us. Whatever feels good. Let's see if we can get to the point where our hands are on the ground. That might mean that we have to bend our legs. You might feel a stretch in the back of the calves or hamstrings here. And let's actually put a bend in the legs. And try to get closer to the ground. As if we're trying to work our way to a little crouch. You might need to bend and straighten a few times, but eventually allowing yourself to find that crouch. Letting the head be heavy. Feeling that head and tailbone connection in the crouch.
As you find this shape, diving into deepening the darkest parts of your body right now. So that would be the front and the crease of the hip flexors, the belly, in the lungs and the shoulders, and even in the ankles. Seeing if you can send breath into the deep crevices, the deep dark places. Seeing if you can expand that darkness, you can deepen that darkness even more. Breathing into the backs of the lungs, feeling the weight in the heels and the hands, and feeling how you can start to slowly and subtly pour that weight into the palms of the hands and into the palms of the feet, the soles of the hand, the palms of the feet, as you're finding this subtle sloshy rock, noticing how you can also find the weight in the dome of the head, and then as you pour back the dome of the pelvis, really acknowledging those sensations, feeling the spreading toes and a long tail. It's as if you have this fluid inside your body, and as you pour it to the front, it all pours out the hands and the head. As you pour it to the back, it pours out the heels and the tail. Still breathing into your darkest parts. Starting to move that a little bit more, with a little bit more range, maybe even bending into the arm. Maybe even allowing for the knees to come down more. Nice. As you do this, can you still feel the tail guiding the action? Back. Guiding weight tail. Big long pendulum. And eventually let's find our knees on the floor. And just finding a little opening in the front. Kind of like this proud puppy. If Taylor turns to the side, you can see the shape of his body with the toes touch back. You can sink back a little bit more. Nice. Almost like you have more weight in your knees and feet. Nice. And you can kind of go into this proud puppy, caving and expanding. Beautiful. And then bringing the weight onto both hands and knees, finding that kind of tabletop. Now let's just take a peek at our tail side to side. Feeling the
darkening in the sides of the ribs as you do this. Thinking now maybe the light is shining on the top of our head, and as we cave our body to the side, you're shining a big shadow on your own body. Beautiful. And then traditional kind of cat-cow, open and close. Breathing into the spine, luxuriating in each little joint space. Beautiful. And this next one, it's going to be hard for me, but we're going to try to float our knees off the ground. And then finding these circles in the spine on your own. You can do this side to side. You can also do circles and the traditional cat and cow, but feeling the heat building. Maybe even feeling how you can kind of push forward and backward here. The knees floating up and down. And finding little translations of this floating crawl.
Working with this floating crawl as Anna's guided us with, even perhaps trying a bit of traversion or more. It might feel like more animal-like movement, some bilateral and contralateral ways of transplanting the hands and feet. Like Anna said, exploring those circularities of the spine and pelvis, or those cats and cows, just allowing our spine to be alive in this more animal crawl, lower floor play. Maybe a sense of effort or rigor is coming to you a bit. Just using your own valves, your own agency, allowing for as much or as little of that sensation as you'd like.
On top of this, noticing how you can use the different edges of the feet, shins, knees, arms, forearms to induce other sensations in your body.
As you investigate those new points that Anna describes, things like kneecaps or side of foot or knife's edge of hand and elbow, that might prompt us to play a bit more with points of contact with the floor. Like what's happening with Anna now, she's finding more landmarks to contact the floor laterally to open up that side of the body. So rather than staying in that floating knee place, we can now fluctuate between the floating knee kind of animalistic crawls, as well as finding these moments of support, or even little moment of like lounge and re-engaging, reigniting into traversion.
What are your collapsible points here? Maybe those collapsible points also reflect to those dark places in our body. How can you send more gravity into the points that are meeting the ground?
Playing with that gravity to allow for moments of giving into it and working against it, producing a sense of fluidity at times. Perhaps there are times where we're putting parts down and finding architectural support and shapes. But as we move through different poses and move through different sequences on the floor, let's invite a sense of fluidity.
Beautiful. And let's meet back up in that all fours position. We're just going to let one leg free behind us, and just, you can keep the toe on the ground and it can be flat or tucked under. And let's play a little bit with just kind of like the opening and closing of the pelvis. Kind of how you can flip the foot and find that nice opening. And you can even turn the pelvis in. Beautiful. And then floating that foot up. Imagining that leg is an extension of your tail. It's like a scorpion's tail. And just playing with the curiosity of that limb, that extension. You can bend into the front legs and feeling, again, this tail comes from even higher than our pelvis. It comes from our fifth lumbar, that deep spine. It actually does, because that's where our psoas connects to our spine, and our psoas connects our legs through our pelvis to our spine. So thinking about that connection, that curious tail. If you want, you can float the opposite arm off the ground.
If you do play with floating that opposite arm, thinking about that long tail that Anna talked about, and also that energetic line connecting that tail to that other floating arm, that long half of an X diagonal line that's coming from limb to limb.
Beautiful. And letting that leg maybe shake out and drop down on the ground. We're going to change sides, letting that other leg open and close. Just feeling the halves of the pelvis here. As we do this, we're really trying to isolate and oscillate between the two halves of the pelvis. And when we extend the leg, we're continuing that exploration. And just playing with also like how much weight is there through the leg in here. And playing with now floating up that scorpion tail. Beautiful. Continuing. Ooh. To search with the foot. If you want, you can also bend in the upper body, feeling the darkening in the front of the hips, the standing leg, so to say. And also floating the opposite arm if you feel.
Feeling that other half of that X now if you're floating that arm. That energetic connection, that long tail that also goes through torso, through those bowls that we began with, and out that other floating wing arm.
And then shaking it out, ooh, dropping it down, and just finding a seat on the heels. We're going to take our hand into one side of our hip and just push ourselves off and catch ourselves with that opposite hand. Beautiful. Still feeling the rippling through our body. Starting to feel the figure eighting that we found in our xiphoid process last week. Just imagining that beautiful little bony structure that hangs down from our rib cage, and how we can dial that through the diaphragm, through the solar plexus. Oh. You can even play with the head bowl here too, and the weight. Is it floating, or are you letting it hang down? You're softening into the cervical spine. Feeling a little like trancy through this.
I'm reminded of that image that Anna gave us in the crouch of the darkening, creating that shadow and creating points of reveal, meaning that there's shadows and parts that we bring closer together or contract, which is also exposing more parts to the light. Enjoying that imagery, enjoying the music of the ribcage here, feeling the intercostal muscles moving those rib bones like a bellow to a fire, fanning open and closed.
If we want, we can release the top arm and even create a little bit of kind of exploration with the top leg. So letting the hinging mostly be on the hip that you poured into and the arm you poured into, and allowing the top half of the body to kind of float above or explore.
As you're exploring, or you might be exploring that more play in the top leg and top arm that Anna was describing, we can think again about that sphere that we were imagining around us when we were doing the head, chest, and pelvic intro. Taking that arm and that leg into different points of that space around us, creating larger curvilinear paths, larger arcs.
Let's actually take this to the back of the pelvis, just getting a little scrub, the sacrum, getting a little scrub on the floor. Ooh. Like we're using our sacrum to buff whatever surface that you're practicing on. And let's actually pour back a little bit, letting the chest and head release on the ground, just finding that shake. Oh, maybe it's growing a little bit more, imagining that it's dicing up the space in our guts. It's letting our belly be free. It's letting our back soften, our spine soften for 5. Ooh, let the flesh be diced off the bone, jiggly 4. Oh, let the calves be soft, 3. Oh, 2, 1, 0. Just let the knees drop. And just imagine like there were 2 strings on the ceiling, drawing your knees back up and then down a couple of times. Like these points are being raised and then pushed down from an outside hand. Beautiful. We will get to that other side, but on this next drop, just feel the flatness of your outline. Feel the gravity of your bones and organs. And imagining that the tension of your muscle and fascial system is just melting off the organs and bones into the earth. Letting big belly breaths come through, inhaling and exhaling. Beautiful. One more big belly breath. On this next inhale, drawing the arms up to the sky and feeling the shoulders, how you can push them, you can reach them towards the ceiling and then drop them back down in the sockets. And you can drop them down so far that the elbows go to the floor, but you can also just subtly play with this catch and release in the shoulder girdle. And the soft space, really trying to soften the chest, soften the clavicle, soften the throat. Feeling how the sliding of the backs of the shoulders, how you're kind of casting and catching. So when you're casting, you're reaching, you're sending out. And then when you're catching, you're allowing the shoulders to drop down in the girdle of the complex joint system that is the shoulder girdle. Starting to see how you could even float the head and neck up and down.
As you might begin playing with that floating of the head and neck, thinking more about those strings that Anna described, that we're bringing our knees up and down. We can think of more of those strings at times that we're being pulled or pulleyed up by those strings, and at times trying to work against them. Those micro collapses that Anna was describing.
And what is being caught and what is casting? Is it just the elbow? Is it the 5th rib? Are there 5 ribs? Is it the clavicle? Can you catch something in that little space? Ooh, nice. I'm playing with that with a little groove here. Coming further off of the floor. This might be a little ab challenge. Just feeling the reverberance through the body. You can float the legs up if you feel real good today.
Thinking of more of those strings now if you do want to float the legs up, and you're working through a kind of coccyx balance, Martha inspired. Yeah, maybe even moments of a little side pleat and those strings. Just go a little bit longer. If you are working with that kind of coccyx balance form, You're going to feel some heat growing in the body and in the core. And again, using your own agency and valve on how much of that you want to indulge in or not. And even like what just happened with Anna and we can return back to that full on ground, laying down place and feel what strings are pulling us back up. Just go for a bit longer, allowing some of that heat to brew while this beat keeps going. We made this beat, so I know there's just a little bit left. Let's see if we can ride this track out in this play. You can always put points back down to pace yourself. Enjoying that breath while you do it still, remembering to breathe.
And what's the difference between your cast and your catch? Beautiful. And let's shift onto the opposite side. Ugh. Finding that pouring through the pelvis now. We had a whole journey between one side, feeling the difference now.
And returning to some of that imagery that Anna talked about on this first side, and also some of the imagery of the bellow of the rib cage. Working with sensation, meaning going towards things that feel nice in our body. We have kinesthetic awareness as human beings, which are these little signals of sensation and feeling that our body gives us. It's like we know a hot surface in our body gives us that signal to move away from it. It also talks to us that way through our body on ranges that might not be healthy. So go to that kinesthetic voice, going towards ranges and pathways that feel good and moving away from those that don't feel so good.
Can we also continue to consider the darkness and the deepening of that darkness in our bottom half? And then the floating again, or the casting. I really want to continue this idea of casting and catching throughout class because I think it's a really clear action and it can be described in so many different ways. So how are you casting in the front and catching with the half of your body that's holding you on the floor?
And that casting and that sense of the darkening that Anna talks about, can let that top arm, perhaps top leg, be a part of that play, a part of that song. I like to imagine in this place that my arm and legs are both wings, or both tails, or both fins in the water. So sensing, if you like, with your mind's eye, how those wings of arm and leg connect to the spine, how they communicate, how movement funnels and travels through them like conduits to another energy, another force. Let's go a bit longer.
As we're doing this, we can start to feel how now we can shift and find those dark caught places and indulge again in the casting of the floating parts of our body. Translating this to different parts in the space on the floor. Four-legged creatures.
Being aware, using your spatial awareness in whatever space you're working in. Bit longer expanding into this floor play that Anna took us in.
How do I also consider maybe my arms and legs are catching, but my pelvis now is casting, or my shoulder blade is casting, or my thoracic spine is casting, and my head is catching.
That sensation through the casting that we found in the arms and legs, and now as Anna describing, into other parts of the torso and the pelvis and the head and neck.
Maybe feeling how this could even take you further up in the space, build you up. The catching and the casting.
It's almost like we're hatching or breaking the walls of our cocoon, letting our wings sprout more. And like Anna said, that might take us up into vertical space more. But we can take our time. We can really feel the different gradation of the build-up. But let's have that trajectory, perhaps, that we're going to continue to investigate this wings and liquid spine and spherical movement, all these beautiful images and words we've talked about to take us up through that vertical space a bit.
And feeling how the floor isn't so far behind. The floor is something that is probably the most constant thing that your body's navigating right now. That the floor is not going anywhere, but it can also catch you. It can also cause you to push into it and float. Beautiful. Just getting familiar with those crevices, those dark places, those pathways that make it easier for you to come in and out of the floor. Really feeling the pushing through the feet, the knees, the shin, the hand, the side of the foot, the side of the pelvis even. Beautiful. Maybe coming up a little bit further now.
Building a little higher, acknowledging those folds and unfolds and rotations of the body as we build a little higher. Like Anna said, knowing that the floor is not that far away, that we're just building a spectrum of space to move through. Building up and up more until we're spending more time perhaps on our 2 feet than on all fours or in that lower space that we spend so much wonderful time gestating in.
Let's find a little bit of kind of a drunken walk here with this groove that was starting to happen in the music. Feeling how those feet catch, that they're always kind of in a state of catching. It's coming back, don't worry.
Let's keep playing with that catching that Anna talked about. And what it's doing for us in here is it's kind of adding more dynamic to that really beautiful liquid wing space. Now there's a bit more range of the dynamics, perhaps some staccato or even rhythmic like motion, quicker change of feet, perhaps some pivots, swivels, little grooves of the feet. At times, a jostling, like that drum sequence that just played, like a kind of random rhythm, or like drums being thrown down the staircase.
Or like an interruption. How do you do that or translate that through the body?
Continue to translate that and play with that sense of now dynamic. Adding, if you haven't yet, that potential for rhythm and more staccato or kind of percussive ways of moving. Also those liquid, more curvy places that we've been in.
Let's just really find a moment to really push into the feet. Kind of to really use the feet, the soles as instigators, all edges of the feet. Almost like your body is just responding to this kind of this action that is isolated and motivated from the lower body. Feeling how that also builds heat. Woo! How many times do we actually not use our feet? Really using, spreading, butter, wow. Widening between the little metatarsals. In this action, let's keep the feet as a constant, and the arms can kind of interrupt us.
Now we got a bit more of a groovy track coming in. And And as Anna was just describing, let's take this groovy track, but let's keep that play in the feet constant. And using those arms as wings, as interruptions, meaning that they might catch you in a groove and send you into a new direction, or crystallize you in space in a posturing. They also can be not interruptive, but supportive, following that influence of the arms or connecting them into the feet. Anna's playing with a large spectrum of that now, fluctuating between that interruptive and that more flowy, letting everything be connected. Let's go just a bit longer, kind of riding out this groovy track that's playing. Playing with the music as a tool or entry point, if you'd like, to rhythm. Anna's hitting certain notes. She's allowing notes to pass her by. She's playing in between notes that aren't even there, or in between beats. A bit of a musical exploration, perhaps. Those feet were an entry point, and that use of the arms as dissonance or harmony. Maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe we're playing with dissonance between our parts and also harmonious moments.
So as you might have noticed, everything in this class is really accumulative, so you can always be drawing on anything that you've found in your body through the past, especially as we get into these groovier moments where we're trying to connect with sound and then layer and integrate that to a connectivity within our bodies. So these interruptions can happen. We can cast, we can catch. How do we interrupt ourselves, maybe now with gaze, with where you're looking? So letting the body follow and interrupt itself. But also finding that your gaze could maybe take you another part of the room. Or maybe it all of a sudden was out and now it's been fixated on your right wrist. So just being really clear about how you're playing between sight, fixation of sight. Maybe even switching the gaze if you have enough space in the space rapidly. Letting yourself not be too precious with any one thing you're looking at right now. Trying to be more adaptive. How does the body adapt? I mean, we have such an incredible capacity for adapting as humans. And let's consider this too now with the hands almost like little seekers. The tips of the fingers alive as little like flashlights or x-rays that could maybe see into our body or see past the wall. Sending those hands, those sensitive hands out far away.
Bringing in those new seekers, as Anna described. Such a beautiful image and way to describe it. Seeking with those hands, as if at times they have the eyes, they have the gaze, they project the light. And how they continue to work through that spectrum of interruptive or complementary. Again, I like to think of it as like dissonance and harmony. Both exist, both have purpose, both have beauty. Both can also be dark or heavy or bright. They have large spectrums. So play with that. Maybe you move through postures that feel a little inorganic or even grotesque. Maybe you also move through postures that feel familiar, very placed. Anna's working with a giant spectrum of that. These beautiful, strange carves, strange curves, things that look familiar, things that look new or even otherworldly or like a dream. And even playing with depth, how you're sending parts further away or closer to you. Perhaps playing a bit with that as proximity and distal investigation. Proximal being our points of our hands and feet, and bones being close to our spine, and distal being expansive, sending them away. Even playing and shifting dynamics. There's times where there's a quickness or percussiveness, and also times that are more legato or adagio or slower arcs.
Let's allow space for us to pause within all these layers. Space for ourselves to slow down, but also speed up when we want. I'm not going to tell you when to do it. It's your choice. It's your agency. It's your body. Nice. And let's start to bring back the bowls into this. So you can play with kind of speeding up, slowing down, but we're going to draw attention to the pelvis in this groovy move. And almost like you kind of want to like jostle something up. We did that kind of like scrubbing on the floor. Can you do that in the air? Maybe imagining things scrubbing up against or coming in contact with. Almost like maybe there's a little bit of these little bouncy balls that live inside the pelvis that you can kind of drum up against the walls of your insides.
A little groove in the pelvis now. This song that's playing is called Eagle Rave.
Feeling a really long waist, too. Eagle Rave.
Eagle Rave, thinking of those wings even of the pelvis. Anna and I even talk about the pelvis as spreading like wings or fanning like a sail. But let's keep the pelvic groove a bit longer that Anna gave us.
And can we find one leg with this groove?
Hey.
And feel how now this bouncy ball can it can be bounced around the innards of the pelvis, but it can also phew, go out to the toe and come back in. Beautiful.
Maybe that leg that we're using in the air can be direct, like a point, like we're executing moments of our ballet class. Or maybe it's a little stinky at times, or a little groovy, or a little kind of goo-like. Let's stay on that first side as much as we can. Whatever feels available and comfortable to us. Like Anna said, playing with moments of speed shift or rhythmic moments.
Beautiful. Now let's switch in a big wide position and just feel it jostling around side to side.
Hey.
Letting the flesh of the ass relax. Letting the lower abdominals soften so they can catch your pelvis better. And can we do this shifting up and down in our level?
Have a little fun with it. Sometimes I have to imagine that I'm buffing a little window back there, dropping down low.
Beautiful. Shifting to the other leg now. Finding that this beat will come back. And a couple weeks ago, we also played with the motivation of this leg work. This motivation is very much so internal seeking out. You can at times play with the external seeking in. So that would be reaching from the extension of the toes as opposed to kind of moving from the internal slippery hip socket. Beautiful. Wow.
And within all of that, still we can use that proximal and distal relationship. Let's make the switch again to the two wide feet.
Let's just find a really, it feels so good to do just a very casual rock. We just showed up to the venue. We're just getting into it.
We're fashionably late. We got a cute outfit on. We're feeling pretty good.
You're feeling good. You're not in it yet. But you're allowing your body to feel lovely, to feel silky. You feel really yourself.
Perhaps even a little smile or a little giggle happens. And we have this next beat that's coming in. It's a nice, cute little beat. So let's keep putting ourselves in that kind of happy, fashionably late, but not a care in the world type of groove.
Maybe drawing into a little step touch together. Feeling those open feet. Still feeling the resonance of the bouncy ball in the pelvis.
Having fun with it. At this point, if there's any one goal at this part of the class, is just to have a little groove. Have a little fun, have a little step touch.
And let's put a little vibration on top, like a little up and down bounce.
We got more beats coming, so feel free, like Anna's doing. Anna's double timing, half timing, playing between stuff. I'm playing between different beats. Let's use this next one to explore that rhythm. 1 and 2 E and a 3 E and 4. There's a lot of little tones and beats in there besides just the 1, 2. And that 1, 2 is nice. But we can also get a little funky E and a 5 E and a 6 and 1 E 2.
How those little shivers can be incorporated into the kind of like the explosiveness we were exploring.
Playing with the music, I started out as a tapper, and I've had teachers talk about you're a member of the band with your taps at times, and also sometimes you're taking your solo. So we can be in the pocket, meaning kind of like where Anna and I are right now, hitting the groove,
Like
really
you,
in the...
You still got it. You're in your 80s, you still got it.
Really in the pocket of the beat. We're not taking our solo, we're doing our part. Boom, da-doom. And then we can have moments where we
You're the backup singer.
have our little solo.
But you can really dance.
Hey. Maybe because we're holding microphones, we're having fun with that, but pick something up in your house. It can be your microphone, or be in a band with your couch. Be in a band with your window or with your cat or your dog. Have a little fun.
Giving you a little moment. Finding a little bit more bending now in the shifting, bending into the legs.
Moving into the last few moments, a couple more tracks of our time together.
A little more soaring through the upper body. Let's actually not allow for our arms to drop below shoulder height.
And as we're keeping our arms up and we're playing with our feet, let's imagine really working the earth and the ground with our feet. I like to imagine that I have big high heels on, that I'm pressing down into the soft marsh or mud and back out. Letting that affect some beautiful tracking and bending of the legs. This song that's playing is called Flower House. You can imagine that we're budding and blooming like a beautiful flower.
And we consider this the casting again through our arms. Like literally you're casting the skies. You're causing these roses to bloom. You're causing the clouds to shift.
Letting this...
And allow for that casting to move throughout the body.
Letting that casting move throughout that body, allowing for more play and range, as if this was your kind of swan song, your moment to just enjoy your body in this side to side.
Letting yourself get dizzy, letting your head take a ride, your eyes take a ride on the head. Letting all the swirling, all the things you're casting to wrap you up, discombobulate you. And allowing yourself space to explore this and anything that we've offered in class. This final dance.
As that flower house fades out, let's allow that final dance to get a bit quieter, as if it's fading out. Kind of like when you hit a piano key and you let that beat ring out for a while.
Can you find a little bit of just slow sway between your feet? Feeling all the gravity pooling in the soles of your feet.
And that pulling of the soles of the feet, I'm reminded to listen to the flesh of the bottom of my feet. Feeling the patches of flesh beneath the toes, feeling the pads of the toes and the heels and the knife's edge as you move into the spreading of that foot. Approaching
Amid this, can you also play with the weight of the head around the spine? In the way that we started class, but it's as if the head is growing and shrinking in weight and size.
Enjoying this last minute or two of this dance. Letting everything that's been said and called out in this session just kind of wash over you or wash past you or get caught in your mesh and picked up again or caught in your web.
Finding more collapses in the chest and pelvis and legs. Like parts of your body are maybe dripping off. Disassembling. And rebuilding. Feeling that kind of bottoming out here and there. You know, that kind of like you hit the bottom and you're kind of like have that resonant energy. Beautiful. Just a little longer. Let's get closer to the ground, like the ceiling's coming down on us. Collapsing on top of us in segments. Beautiful. I'm finding the bottom. You can stay where you are, but we're gonna come towards you. If you feel ready, feeling the bottom that you found, maybe lingering in that bottom, and allowing for the weight to pool in the parts of your body that are in contact with the floor. And just feeling the breath from the practice that you just experienced. We're just going to thank you for joining us, and again remind you, if you can, to send donations to Venmo at slowdanger, paypal.me/slowdanger, or the link in my bio. We're doing these all May and hopefully throughout June. We also wanted to shout out that we have a new music release that we released with Jasmine Hearn. You can find that all in the links in our bio. There's some really beautiful sounds in that opening.
We just want to thank you again for sharing this time with us, especially during things like quarantine and being isolated. It's really beautiful to share this practice digitally with you all. As Anna said, we have a new music coming out. The music from this class was all original, so just reach out if you would like to know where the music's at.
Yeah. We love y'all.
Yes.
We miss y'all.
Thank you all so much.
Stay safe.
Next Sunday, we'll see you.